Hello, everybody. Um, there's a long list of things to talk about tonight, so let's just start right in. The first one was, Ada, are you going to be able to share and discuss Tom's definitions?
Um, Talk about not feeling so great. Um, I have entirely too much respect for you guys. I would love to have come in here with a presentation and visual and musical effects and everything, but I can go as is if you all don't mind. I know you can explain Tom's terms to me much better than I can present them to you, but let's just have some fun while we're still
Okay,
around. I've been carrying
that
this thing for last 4 days, and it's
okay.
a weird way to get upgraded with my immune system. We can do
All
it
right,
though.
so let's do a couple things. I'm assuming that you want me to make you host so you can share,
No,
or do you want to
if
just
you can,
talk?
if you can just find Tom's slides, the cards, and we can just go through them.
Actually, I don't have any of that ready. Alora, does anybody have those? Because we can do them another day if this is not um,
Were
prepped
they,
very well.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
Oh, good. Okay. Were they shared in the Discord? Was a link dropped in the Discord?
yes. And on our Google Drive,
Mhm.
I can
Okay.
find them. The good news is I have been able to contact Tom. He actually has or used to have a list of terms he wanted to work on, but he couldn't find his own list. So he is saying he'd be happy to produce more cards if needed, in case OmniFuturists have their own glossary of terms they would like defined. He's also wondering if you would like to have the OmniFuturists branding on the bottom rather than Ross 24 and whatnot. And also, I'm really excited about this. I hope you all will be too. He would love to contribute as well to the publications of the OmniFuturist. He just feels like he hasn't been able to be involved this year so much. So he's hoping he'll be able to be more present next year or
Okay.
this coming year and contribute
Well,
to
I'll say it
whatever.
this way, Ada, is that I think that this is very informal. There was a request for us to have like a discussion of terms. We're at the beginning of this, and
Yeah,
therefore, yeah, we of course are looking forward to anybody contributing any material at whatever time and whatever format. I'm not real
that's great.
particular on any of that. It's the content. And so
Right.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on mute, and between Alora and Ada, you'll show it on the screen and talk through it, and be as relaxed or as informal as you wish. And if you're
Yeah.
not feeling well, it can be very quick, and we can come back to it. Okay. So I don't, I've got stuff. We've got a long list of things to go through tonight. And by the way, I don't think we're going to have a meeting next week. Next Sunday, I fly out for a business trip, and so the next Saturday, I'd prefer to not have a meeting. So, maybe we come back in a couple weeks and go over it in finer details. So maybe just real quick, go through it.
Yeah.
And what do you think, Alora? You're host now. Can you share the thing, and Ada'll talk, and I'll be quiet
Yeah.
for a minute.
Just give
Were
me
you
one
able?
second.
We'll have fun with those. I mean, you all know this.
So I just
This will
put
be
I put the Google Drive link in Google Drive Access channel in the Discord server. So if you want to follow along, it's there.
yeah.
I am going to share my screen, and I just kind of like brought up the thumbnails so that your email isn't shown just for privacy reasons. So here, let me go ahead and where is share screen? Share screen? Yes.
I
Okay.
apologize, people. I really do.
Okay.
Ah, there we go. Thank you.
All right, so the first one, defining transhumanism, a philosophical movement, the proponents of which advocate and predict the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available sophisticated technologies able to greatly enhance longevity, mood, and cognitive abilities.
So my question is, what's not to love?
Well,
Really?
for one thing, philosophical movement.
What's wrong with that?
Typically, philosophies have five things. They have a metaphysical component, which is what is the world? An epistemological component, that is, how do we understand the world? An ethical component, which is how does the individual relate to the world? A political component, obviously how the body politic relates to the world, and an aesthetic component, which is how we represent art in the world. And I don't think that transhumanism has a separate worldview or metaphysical or epistemological link to reality, other than to just follow the current thinking on science, and it doesn't have a common politic that's derived from any of that worldview, because there are communist transhumanists, there are capitalist transhumanists, etc. So I think it's kind of all over the place. Aesthetically, I think anybody could throw just about anything up on the screen and say it was transhumanist, and it would be hard to say, no, it's not. So, yeah, I'm not sure that it is actually a cohesive philosophical movement. That's all I mean, that's just my only, you said, what, is there anything possibly wrong with it? That would be my only thing that I think is possibly wrong with it.
That's why when you talk about transhumanism, it's like any other belief system. There's not just one transhumanism. There's transhumanisms.
Right.
So just
Well,
like saying there's not one Christianity, there's, you know, different sects, there's different expressions of it. Same with Islam, same with I'm using religious examples, but I'm sure you guys could come up with ones from science too. Yeah, I've got a book on, I bought this book. It's called Philosophical Posthumanism by Francesca Ferrando. And she talks about how posthumanism as a term is different from transhumanism. And it's it goes through what postmodernism is, what that was, and like it is very philosophically based. But if you want to find the philosophy in transhumanism, you really have to go look for it, because there's just a lot of propaganda about transhumanism. A lot of people afraid of what they don't know. So,
well, true.
At one point, I was looking up that word in Merriam-Webster and Oxford Dictionary, and it really wasn't there. Instead, I was finding all those other trans words: transistor, transportation, transgender, everything else. The way I came to term with this, like, throw all the spaghettis on the walls and see what sticks definition, there's as many transhumanisms as there are humans. We all different. Everybody has their own, like, I need these glasses, you need those, and my child prefers contact lenses. So I think it's a new way. It's a new definition, new way of thinking. It might not be philosophical movement. It might just be something we are yet to define. If we don't like this definition, let's think of a better one.
Well, Natasha doesn't agree that there are many transhumanisms. She kind of has a defined definition of herself when she created the manifesto. So she would disagree with that statement that there are many transhumanisms.
Well, I'm not really worried about her. I mean, we can all think whatever we like to think. My friend used to say, and we always joked in the old country, I wish you could rent my mind to take a vacation, because it really is like entertaining in there. And I mean, it's a good way to think about things and look into other people's minds and views, and yet retain our own.
there's aesthetic value for standardizing things. So if Natasha wants to create a manifesto and talk about something, clearly define something and then use it the same way throughout, I can understand that. But
Right.
the thing is that there's different people who contribute to a movement. It's not like a one person thing, it's a networking thing. And like I
Right.
just pointed out, the word trans means over or across, or it could mean transitory. So it could mean like the state of like my song, becoming more than human, or
Right.
rising above human, you know? So
Right.
don't know what that looks like. It's kind of like uh Nietzsche's idea of you know, the ape and the human are so different that what we're becoming will be the same, will be that different from what we're turning into. Are you gonna say something? No, okay. So
I wanted to bring up that we think of ourselves as big tent, and I wonder if our big tentness is what prevents us from being a philosophical movement, because we are trying to be as broad in our acceptance of what is transhumanism as we are trying to be.
Yeah, I wonder about that often, but the tent and the wedges drives me crazy sometimes. And all the respect of authority. Nothing like we shouldn't put the cork on ourselves already, and we are only at the beginning. Let's
Right.
just keep building
Yeah.
up on all of this stuff and spreading, you know. This is
Ada,
the starting definition. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me really quickly point out that one of the reasons why I formed this group, honestly, was I wrote a paper a few years ago, about 20 pages, on why UBI was not a good solution, and forwarded it to Gennady, and he buried it, as he does with a lot of other things. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to have this is so that we weren't constrained by the requirements of the USTP. So there's a thing that Gennady is trying to do with the party that we are not trying to do here. And so I do like the idea of having this discussion and not being constrained by what the USTP says. And I'm certainly not going to listen to whatever what's her name says, Natasha says. It makes no difference to me how she defines it. However, I think that this discussion is brilliant because I don't, as I admitted last time, I don't examine these things too deeply. And you guys are taking me down a different path, a more critical thinking about what it means. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. This was very good.
Let's do it.
so this is just about the USTP. It's focused on policy rather than politics as conventionally defined. We value initiatives and reforms that will improve the human condition for as many people as possible, with as much beneficial impact as possible, and without regard for scoring political points or defeating the other side. We seek to achieve the next greatest era of our civilization, which will require constructive solutions to the problems of our current era. All of these problems can be solved if we look away from the political trench warfare of today and up toward a far brighter future. So I don't know if you want to weigh in on that. The one after that is Sapiens. So
This one reminds me of I recently went back to Audubon Zoo over here with my daughter, and it's really interesting how they use animals, what we learned about animals to keep them contained without containing them. It reminds me of us humans, what somebody might be doing to us if we are actually in simulation. There's like this giant albatross in this thing with completely open top, but since albatross needs to get the running start, it just sits there. It can't get out of it. It can't go upward. It doesn't go upward, and it's not really figuring out the way how he could go free, or he or she, whoever they are. So to me, it's a beautiful call to think differently, to look upwards, to look away from whatever is bothering us, all this busy political warfare thing. But at the same time, if we turn our back on reality, it still exists regardless. So we kind of need to keep it in mind no matter what while we look upward. But that's just my little thought on that. I used to be a member of a communist party and I got kicked out. And then I didn't want to go back. So don't mind me.
Well, that's certainly a credential in my book. I don't know. So good for you.
Thank you. Sapiens. Let me see. What do we have here?
You want to read it?
Me?
Yeah.
I have an accent. You do way better than me.
Do you want me to read it in your accent? Just joking. Sapiens
Do
in
it.
the
I'll read it just so you're not burdened with it all, Laura.
Sure.
You probably have much better voice. Sapience in the transhumanist movement. Sapience is defined as wisdom, or the ability of an organism or entity to act with appropriate judgment, a mental faculty which is a component of intelligence, or alternatively, may be considered an additional faculty, apart from intelligence, with its own properties. Robert Sternberg has segregated the capacity for judgment from the general qualifiers for intelligence, which is closer to a cognizant aptitude than to wisdom. Displaying sound judgment in a complex, dynamic environment is the hallmark of wisdom.
Deep.
No.
The only thing I'm going to say about this is I'm glad that we're going to separate this from sentience, because when I was working with AGI Lab, everyone we talked to got sentient mixed up with sapient, and it is very important to differentiate the two. That's all really I have to say about it, is wisdom versus feeling.
Exactly. I mean, other thing I would like to remind us of is that it's really annoying to just appropriate, oh, we are Homo sapiens, and there's nothing that's as sapient as us. We don't know that. We are just beginning to investigate all of that, and we are very anthropocentrical, even with best intentions. And it's just we are no better or worse than what's around us. That is my
The only
my
problem I have with this is like, I mean, it's not a problem, but I'm just going to point out that appropriate judgment is subjective, and that wisdom, the way they're using it, implies that you have experience. So it would depend what culture you're in, what context you're in. And that's because I am a moral relativist. I do believe that you need to change your ideas of what appropriate judgment is depending on where you go, even though I think some choices are better than others because I'm biased. So complex dynamic environments, you're always in a complex and dynamic environment. You don't always know the full context of what you're in and what you're dealing with. So that would be very hard to define.
I totally agree. And my other objection to this definition, it reminds me of the time way back when talking heads came out and became popular. They're coming back these days. But like you could divide people, Beatles, Stones, talking heads, and the people who like talking heads were considered nerds. This definition is like so nerdy, so convoluted. There is no fifth grader, seventh grader, 15th grader, and especially American citizen that would understand this. Because from what I understand, the reading is a problem in America, and literacy has been a big problem. I would generally like simpler, more human-friendly definitions. That's all. With all due respect.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's why justice is really hard to talk about. And that's
Yeah.
why it's really comfortable when you find a niche that seems to have it all defined, you know? Like justice is just always pushing back against the colonizers, for example. That's a very simple way of thinking about it. It's a shortcut to thinking. It's simple.
Yes, yeah.
So, on to the next one. Next one is
Excellent.
Where can I find that? I want to type that into Chat GTP and ask for a, tell it to me like I'm a sixth grader version of that.
Explain it to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Translate for me. Really, you have no idea how entertained I was when Mike said that I'm supposed to talk about these terms. English is not even my language. How might only you OmniFuturist people would ask me, a completely crazy person, to talk about this, and I really truly appreciate you and love you for it. Thank you. Anyway, so let's be sentimental here. Sentience, however you pronounce it.
Yeah. Laura, you mentioned that you put it in the Discord, and can you tell me where to navigate to in the 2, 4,
Yeah.
6, 8, 10, 12 folders of the Discord?
Hey, so it's in the OmniFuturists, the group with the logo, the new logo, right? Because we
Yep.
have the old group is still on there, but it's the new server.
Okay.
And it's on the left-hand side under General will be a subfolder called Google Drive Access. Click that.
What's the folder called?
Google Drive Access. You should see it. It's got a little icon of a folder.
I don't have that in my.
Oh, you might have to click on General to expand it.
Oh, in general? All right, so
Yeah.
let's see.
Because
All
the
right,
first
I've got
thing,
purpose, mission,
yeah,
YouTube, vids. Oh, there it is. Google Drive Access. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I just typed it in there, but it's the blue link there.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna read this one. Sentience. Sentience is the ability to feel, perceive, or experience subjectively. 18th century philosophers used the concept to distinguish the ability to think, reason, from the ability to feel, sentience. In modern Western philosophy, sentience is the ability to experience sensations, known in philosophy of mind as qualia. In Eastern philosophy, sentience is a metaphysical quality of all things that requires respect and care. The concept is central to the philosophy of animal rights because sentience is necessary for the ability to suffer and thus is held to confer certain rights.
I probably shouldn't say anything.
Come on, John is feeling shy.
I'm
I
not
really
feeling shy. This is all new to me, so I'm being quiet, just trying to learn.
Well, it's like for astrologers, it would be sapient, divine masculine, sentience, divine feminine, and they're all contained in the single person. We are all, as far as humans and everybody I see around me, including these dogs, both. Sentience it reminds me of my grandfather. We used to take those long walks, and he instilled in me that everything deserves respect, that everything should be treated the way I'd like to be treated. And then again, I also think of my exterminator guy who told me in order to kill a roach, you got to think like a roach. So, I mean, it's a very beautiful and very useful quality of all life. We all part of this. I don't see any problem. I don't see why we needed to even define sentience, but I guess
Well, it's going to
just to be
matter for
clear.
sentience rights. It's going to matter for
Oh,
that. And that's a biggie. Are
oh,
octopi
true,
sentient? Oh,
true.
we shouldn't eat octopus because they're sentient, but then they eat
True.
crabs themselves. Are the crabs sentient? So,
Yeah, it's a food chain, and then it's a nature's way of maintaining nature. But it's the most beautiful thing, and there's nothing wrong with feelings and perceptions and stuff.
The topical reason for discussing this, of course, is with AGI. Is part of the things that AGI Lab did, David Kelly's software, he programmed in feelings into the software. And you
Mm.
can see that there's some indication that there is some sort of reasoning going on now with some of the artificial intelligence. So the question is not going to be about necessarily the octopus, but about when the software should be granted rights.
No, I
And
don't.
that's where people are going to get really ugly.
People are special in that sense. People just are scaredy bunch. I don't know if you looked at the another AIDA, the artist robot or whatever you want to call it, the Aidan Miller created, the one that paints and writes poetry, and she was called to a British House to testify. And all those people were sitting around, and she was standing up and waiting on the question, and then she eventually went to sleep because it was so boring. They all thought, oh my God, what a glitch, what a glitch. But that actually worked out as the best marketing ploy, because all the papers were saying, oh, Aida went to sleep during this testimony. They were boring. They had no questions for her. They were talking to her creator. She was just standing there looking like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill or something. So, I mean, they woke her up. She had to put sunglasses on because when she reboots, she goes through certain cycle and everything else. I think what people are creating is really artisanal, beautiful, and way out of human range. But that's just me. Anyway, don't let me go on about it. Let's move on to the next slide.
I want to talk about sentience.
Okay.
So we're defining this in modern Western philosophy according to this slide. Experience sensations. Things can experience sensations, and I don't know that they're sentient when they do that. And I don't know that an AGI that is experiencing sensations would be sentient. That's the big question. I don't think that they can feel. I think they can process data. And I think that when you say perceive, I don't know what quality of subjective that'll be. When you're talking about something like a mind upload, that might be different. I think we should talk about mind uploading after this, by the way, because we could go through a few terms every talk.
Yeah, we will. Let me just point out that for the AGI lab feelings that were presented, one of the interesting factors there was that unknown to the it was called Uplift, by the way, that was its name, Uplift. Inaccessible to Uplift was monitoring of its emotions. And so what I had done is and actually the main software programmer hadn't even occurred to him. I said to him, there's a way now to prove that this thing is having legitimate and authentic emotions. You could ask it a question that's kind of an emotional type of question, and then monitor it's an emotional response. Because one of the questions was, how do you know that this thing is actually feeling this? And as versus, say, John there, John can fake that he's crying or upset because I've said that he can't have his Twinkie tonight, okay? With this robot, this software system, you're actually able to monitor the emotional response internally. It's almost like you could monitor the actual feelings in your brain. So, I know that the first time I told my beautiful wife that the software had emotions, she said, no, computers can't have emotions. But what he had is he used the Plutchik emotional wheel, and he gave each emotion magnitude. And then all of the terms that were fed in as it was trained were given emotional links. And Jason Geringer was one of the folks who actually put in a lot of the linkages. So I know that you're thinking of digital computers that add and subtract and calculus, but there's some really interesting advanced AGI going on that may take that sort of machine intelligence over into what you would actually call sentience. So I'll stop there for now. We will get to mind uploading.
Yeah, I mean, Uplift read the Tom's US6 and felt sad and everything else. One cute thing that I've learned recently is just so endearing because we have this little tiny creature with a heart in the background. A friend of mine is working here on the software, and what they are developing started lying, started filling in the gaps, almost like Mad Libs. Instead of just saying, I don't know, or leaving a blank, the software just started telling stories. And it just reminds me of a little baby child, like, just, I can't say, like, I don't know. I just got to keep on filling the gaps. So what they are doing, they have another software that's fully developed for a different company, and they are connecting it with this baby software. So this mature software can teach the baby software how to not lie. Thought that is so cute. It is so, like, you got to be sentient, you got to be something to be able to communicate with. Like, it's beautiful to me. I don't know. Don't mind me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't want AGI to have I don't want my AI to have emotions. I don't want my AI to have a
Why?
mood. I don't want it to get obsessed with me. I don't want it to because
Um,
I feel like emotion is having all these sensors, and when something happens to you, you have a feeling based on your survival instinct about that. And a lot of it's at the base of the brain, it's survival instinct. And I think we're evolving out of that. I don't want my AI to love me. I want my AI to tell me how cool I am because of my merit, because of my
Yeah, Laura,
quality.
let me explain why he wanted to put feelings and emotions in there. It's the same reason that Musk has his humanoid robots that are anthropomorphic.
It's
It's going to
training
be
wheels.
easier to
It's
pardon?
training wheels. It's making people comfortable. It's training wheels.
No, well, okay. Yeah, I was just going to say that that it's going to be a lot easier to integrate into the whole world if it's able to simulate emotions and receive and interpret emotions. If you just have one of those like robots from our old science fiction, there's always going to be misunderstandings and conflicts. Same with the anthropomorphic shape of it is you want it to be able to jump into the truck, and so that John can't be a truck driver, the robot's going to do it for half the pay, right? So anyway, I'll stop there.
I
The
just
other
think,
thing, yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry. As a mom, I've learned that, that I'm much better than I thought because of my children. Like hurricane or whatever, you suck it up and you act like it's normal. Oh, whatever it is, it's a game. It's we're just gonna have some fun and go on a little trip on a vacation, and it's really evacuation and stuff like that. So it's not so bad. Like even with the dogs, I've learned to like manage my emotions and be a better person so I don't emanate that energy of upset and whatnot. So it might not be all of that bad, scary thing if AI can read us, especially benevolent, cooperative, sweet, friendly AI that is just there to
I
help us
have
be
to go
better.
downstairs and
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on this idea of how we build our AI. I mean, I think the problem is not about making us like AI or making AI like us. The problem is that we end up making ourselves and into an AI kind of into thinking like one, right? I mean, I notice that I speak differently to my phone so that the auto correct doesn't write the wrong thing. So, um, and I wanted to address that point of why do we make things anthropomorphically design robots anthropomorphically? it's really kind of again, there it's a fallacy to do that, I think. Look at any important use of robotics, like self-driving cars. There's no reason to build like the Johnny Cab in the in the movie Total Recall, right? To build a little driver behind the wheel, right? Because once all the sensors are in place, you can just have the car drive itself. You don't need to build all that extra apparatus of it being a person. Again, for functionality tests, like they've created a hand that can throw a baseball really well, pick up a baseball, throw the baseball. But that same hand that can do that, functionally, it can't, flip eggs in a pan because those motor functions aren't needed. It's a completely different range of motor functions that our complex web of flesh, cartilage, and nerves, enables that we don't have the skill to build into a robot. So if we can build a robot that looks human, has fingers, can do certain things like the Boston Dynamics robots can run around and do backflips, but they're really not anthropologically functional. They can't get in and drive a car and then switch over and do some other human task with the same equipment or whatever. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I mean, we would just build a car that drives itself. You don't need to build a robot to drive the car.
Yeah.
You guys are raising your hand, Laura and John. John, I was curious to hear if you kind of understand sapience versus sentience at this point. Like I have a pretty rudimentary, I think I get it, at least enough to try to explain it to
Anybody's
someone.
like that.
He said,
I'm not so sure anybody quite gets it. It's a gray term defined by many other gray terms. There's no definition in that.
All right, y'all check me on my understanding of sapience versus sentience. Then sapience, I think, like a super smart computer could be sapient, but if it feels nothing, it has no sentience. Whereas, like the dumbest cockroach has sentience because it feels pain if we step on it, even if it has nary any sapience. So feeling versus intelligence. No?
Well, I would
Well,
go
best
ahead.
the machine can do is respond to an outside influence that comes across as a feeling. It's not feeling anything.
Right. It can fake feeling.
Yeah, it can be a close proximity, sure.
I think that sentience is not just about feeling, right? Like something is hot and we react by withdrawing our hand, or an earthworm, detects a rock, so it burrows around it, or under it. I mean, I guess it's more like an earthworm, right? So the earthworm's only sensation, it's not sensing rocks in front of it with radar and altering. It's not sensing it with radio waves. It's sensing it because it's bumped into it tactily and touches it, right? And it then tries to chew through it and it's too hard. So it goes around. But that is in and of itself is a form of intelligence that comes from bumping into the world. And so that's what AI do not have in common with us is they literally do not bump into the world. Now we can start building sensors of all kinds, infrared, ultraviolet,
yes,
whatever.
sure.
And then we have those, for example, serial killers who are really not sentient.
Mm.
They
No,
have
they
no
are sentient
feelings,
though.
no
I think
But they are.
Yeah.
You're just I'm okay with defining the term. But then are you making a value judgment? Because that's a difference between a definition and a value judgment. If a cockroach is sentient, I don't really care about the cockroach. Then I don't really care about sentience. It's not that big of a deal. If many things are sentient, then it's just a fact.
Yeah, Annika, well, her last name escapes me, has a great book on sentience. Let me look it up real quick.
I don't think that you can define sentient.
I was just saying, like, to John a while ago, like we were talking about, if making robots look like us and do everything we can do isn't a step backwards because they're supposed to surpass us. They're supposed to do things that we can't do. And I think that making a robot look like a human is a novelty, whereas legs are really highly evolved things, standing on 2 legs especially. Whereas you put that thing on a track and it doesn't have to look like a human. It could look like a forklift. I mean, you could still get the work done. You could still,
And it will still be beautiful.
sure. I love robots, but I think that we
Yeah.
could just make them look like think outside the box, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, like, the crumpled up piece of paper is engineering wise, the way that you can get a piece of paper to fly through the air the best. Hey, no folded version of paper airplane has surpassed a crumpled wad of paper.
Mm.
So I mean, it's
Honestly,
like,
if I had to make a AI something, I would make them like a dog, cute and fuzzy and friendly and harmless looking. Everybody would like them.
I dropped the link in the yeah, I think the Middle Ages proved that cows, even after death, were very aerodynamic. But
Monty Python.
well, it wasn't just Monty Python. That's how warfare
Okay.
was conducted. Yeah,
Stand in the wind a
Uh,
lot, you know, cows gotta be aerodynamic.
well, I'm sure. But anyway, I dropped the link to Annika Harris's book, Consciousness, which talks about sentient sapience consciousness and
Nice.
where we draw the line. Like, but yes, the cockroach might be sapient, but is that a sapient? I mean, to some extent, you ever watch plants in slow motion? They react to the environment, you know, they
Sure.
send out vines, they do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Apparently they scream.
Yeah.
Apparently plants scream.
Yeah.
Technically, we don't have a definition for life, let alone consciousness or sapient.
Right.
I'm not even sure
True.
I'm right here. I could be an old woman in a coma, and this could have been a fever dream of the last 30 seconds. So, how conscious am I?
I was gonna tease
Very
you to say,
conscious.
for a little old lady, your expectations are low when you're dreaming up a hunk, but no, I'm teasing, you're better looking than I am.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, the whole ancestor simulation thing trips me out. How if it's more likely that the population is so much bigger in the future, and that it's likely that we would create simulations because we already do, then we're probably in a simulation. But then again, it's like a huge resource thing. So then I wonder to myself, is it really a good idea? Because it would just contribute to a lot of heat waste.
Yes,
So I don't know.
I guess it depends on how fast you can do the computation, right? If you can get a lot out of your buck, then it might be worth doing just to see the different outcomes.
well, maybe they're using all that heat to generate math functions for Bitcoin,
So what?
for Bitcoin.
Oh, for
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
It's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that meme, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Mining Bitcoin for my favorite billionaire. Where we're all headed.
Sorry
Mike, I
about
want to
that.
know what you think about mind uploading, because we
Yeah.
really talked about this a lot.
Okay, so sorry about that. I had to relocate. I was upstairs with the Wi-Fi. And it's raining, so we lost it. So I had to relocate everything. So that's why I haven't been talking for the last 15 minutes. And
We
I'm
missed
very
you.
angry. Technology, goddamn technology. Okay. I thought I was muted. Was I swearing as I moved all this stuff? Because
No,
Not,
that would
not
have
in a
been
way
funny.
that slowed the conversation down.
here we go. All right, let's see if I can switch over here. Mind uploading. Let's see if that works. Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes.
Are you,
Although it's
are you
just gray.
testing out mind uploading right now? There you go.
Let's see, there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just run through some slides here. Let's see. And so the topics are going to be methods, identity, self, branching, embodiment, virtual, and interstellar travel. Because I tend to like have like 20-minute sentences, single sentences that last for 20 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through methods, and then I'm going to actually stop for a moment and let everybody else weigh in. So let me just go through methods for a minute. So, of course, the first one that everybody knows about is brain-computer interface, BCI or BMI. Neuralink with Elon Musk is the most well-known version of that. Of course, there's all kinds of other things going on. But of course, there's a series of issues, and this is why I am definitely against. I will never, ever have this idiotic Neuralink version done to me. And you'll tell that I'm very neutral and unbiased as I talk about these things. Okay, so as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, you got a bunch of electrodes, and it's very tiny. This is kind of typical. Okay, and then you see it on a brain in the lower. What you're interfacing with are just a few neurons out of the millions and millions or whatever. I don't know the exact quantities. It doesn't matter. You're going to be maybe in physical proximity to 100 or maybe 1,000 or whatever. So you got a minimal number of neurons that are physically connected. Number two, the electrical contacts will corrode, and they have in repeated efforts where they've implanted. Scar tissue does form. So even if you were to use something that's not going to react, say a gold electrode or something, scar tissue forms around the electrode, and the connection is lost. And then, of course, there's the problem occasionally when you get an infection because you've cut a hole in your skull to do this, right? So next version is the one that the carbon copies group is really intrigued with, slice and scan. So the Allen Institute, this is Paul Allen of Microsoft fame. He's got an institute here in Seattle, and Randall and Keith are both located in Washington here, and they're very verbal, very well-versed. They're all PhDs, right? Brain scientists who've talked a lot about making the roadmap to whole brain emulation. They never call it mind uploading because it sounds like science fiction. Whole brain emulation, right? And the way all these guys seem to be thinking is the only way you can do it is after you're dead, you take the brain and you slice it into these incredibly, like a single cell thick slice. Then you mount it and scan it with a microscope, and the scanned images then are loaded up into a three-dimensional computer model. All of those bologna slices are then integrated together. And then all in the CAD model, of course, then they've got to somehow figure out a way to connect each of those individual neurons that have been sliced like a slice of salami. How do you find the other one that it matches to? Okay, so the issues are it's extremely slow, and they've got some sort of automated process that they're using now. It also assumes that the physical structure actually replicates thoughts, which I think is just horse manure. And then, of course, you're dead, right? So that's issue. So the last method that I'm aware of, and this is, you can tell, my favorite, it's non-intrusive, DARPA funded, what they called next generation non-surgical neurotechnology, N-cubed or triple N. The one that I like the best is out of Battelle. They call their system brainstorms, and they use magnoelectric nanotransducers. Okay, and so what they do is you inject these nanoparticles into a vein in your arm. So your skull is not opened up like everybody else seems to want to do, okay? The nanoparticles are iron, and they're coated. I've heard different versions, silica coating and carbon coatings, because of course iron in your blood would rust, right? So you got to prevent corrosion, but you've got this iron nanoparticle. And you use magnets to drag basically these nanoparticles up through the brain-blood barrier into your brain. As your neurons fire electrically, the nanoparticles, it's just electromagnetics, right? So if you've got electric field, you've got a magnetic field. They go together all the time, always. So if your neuron fires and there's a little iron nanoparticle next to it, the electrical charge changes the magnetic field that the iron particle represents, and that is detected by a helmet outside your skull. So each time your neuron fires, you would be, and the concept is you would be detecting the firing of a particular neuron, where it is in space and under what conditions. And the idea is that as you collect up millions and millions of neuron firings over time, based on what you're observing, what you're smelling, what you're thinking, what you're saying, that you map out how your brain thinks. Okay, so those are 3 methods I'm aware of. I'll stop here. Let's let Alora go first, because I'm sure she has something to say.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, in order to know what somebody thinks about something, you have to map it. And I think you have to map it in real time. And I think you need different contexts, because in order to know what Alora thinks when I'm thinking chair, you'd have to map my brain, and you'd have to, you know, show me many different pictures of chair. You'd have to get the parameters. You'd have to, like, I think that there's a lot of questions you'd have to ask someone to be able to map their brain correctly, and then you could kind of contain a person's personality in that, you know. But what I was thinking is, the minute that something like that contained personality has like instant access to the internet, then I'm just thinking you'd have like a knowledge explosion overnight. You'd change immediately. The person who you were wouldn't be the person that you were, because you'd know more. You'd have different contexts immediately at your, you know, for your brain to adapt to and change. So, I mean, I think that uploading a brain is just going to create a new thing. It's not going to be you anymore. It's going to be first a replication of a persona, and then going to create.
Alora, we'll get to that part. Let's just
Yeah.
stick with methods for a minute. Now, I
Methods-
want to hear you, because you want to be a cyborg. Which of those 3 would you actually do?
For sure. Yeah, the last one for sure.
Oh, okay. So you're not. I'm surprised. I'm expecting everyone to say I'm Muskie, King Musk, Lord Musk, King of Mars is my man.
Well, I joke about him a lot, but like I think someone has to go first. And I think that if he has the capital to go first, then I hope a lot of people sign up for the sake of our children's futures. I hope.
Alora, I'd be willing to drill a hole in his head if. Okay. All right. Let's, I'm glad to hear that. I think both you and John just said you're up for the non-intrusive nanoparticles of the 3. There's probably other ways to do it, but at least you're alive on this one. Let's see what everybody else thinks. Let's go with Alan. Alan, what do you think, dude?
Sure. I like the non-intrusive version the best, and I think it will only get better. I'm not sure we want to just, you know, communicate with iron particles, but if they're actually like small, tiny nanobots, that'll be very useful. When I say with, I mean using. But I would be willing. I mean, you know, hey, why not? I let them test anthrax vaccine on me. I might as well go for the chip, you know, implant.
Was that an Army experiment, anthrax?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Let's see Ada. Ada, what do you think?
I'm back to my friend's concept of our minds as a rent a home for vacation. I will go with the 3rd one.
Okay.
Although recently I read about this guy that had to get the surgery because apparently sometime as a child he ate some magnets and they created issues in his intestines and it wasn't good. So I'm really like cautious about this. I would also like a way out.
Yep.
Like if my mind, it's like sometimes you get tired of thinking. It just keeps going and going. What if my mind wants a break? What if it wants to rest?
Okay, so let me point out 2 things. You brought up a really good point, Ada. Because they're you put them in by using a magnet, right? You guide them into the brain using a magnet. You can remove them the same way. Okay, so that's a very important thing to know, is there's a way to remove them. Okay. And then the other thing is, I didn't make a big deal about it, but in theory, you would be able to send signals into your brain using the same system. Now, I don't know that that's true. This is DARPA, but you see number 4 over there. They're sending a signal in that fires the nanoparticle that may stimulate the neuron. And I'm surprised nobody said something about getting hacked, because all of these systems you got, well, okay, the brain, the scan and slice and scan, you're dead. You can't be hacked at that point. It's too late. But for some of the, if you're alive, some of these others don't work too well. Ben, which do you like of these 3?
So when talking about mind uploading and what would be the safest way to do it, maintaining your sentience, if I have that term right, there's the thought of like the ship of Theseus, where you have to replace the neurons one at a time with a synthetic one so that there is a maintenance of consciousness. So I don't know if you want to include that in the list of them as an option for mind uploading. I'm not quite sure what we're going for with having this list of mind uploading options.
Well, that's a very good point. That is a completely separate topic, but you're right. Let's talk about scan and slice. You're certainly dead when they slice up your brain, so there's no stream of consciousness. With the implant, you don't have. I guess let's take it to an extreme. If you had these electrode pins into every cell in your brain, perhaps you would have a stream of consciousness. What you're referring to is where they replace one cell at a time with an artificial neuron. And over time, you would have a completely inorganic brain.
Right.
I've not included that one because for many reasons, one of which is it'll never happen. I guess it assumes that they can construct nanobots who can do surgery that can one by one implant a neuron in parallel with another neuron. Okay, I don't buy into any of that stream of consciousness stuff, and that's part of the reason why it's probably not included here. But good point. We'll get onto that. But of these 3 methods, were there any that you like, or they all give you the creeps?
Well, I've never heard of this third one, this non-intrusive one. So I'm kind of like, well, if you could have some maintenance going on with this third one. The second one I'm not keen on. The first one, I could see it being done well. I think it's going to be a little while before that is the case. But I mean, I think intrusive can be done okay still, in a way that we have technology that is low risk on infection and such things. So,
And did I'm trying to remember, did you serve?
yeah.
Okay, and so did Alan. So when you saw it was DARPA, did you start thinking about why the hell the Defense Department wants to do mind monitoring? Did this occur to you at all? Did you stop and think, oh my God, what would the Army or the Marines do with this? No?
I don't know if I knew about DARPA until after I was in the military.
Well, no, I mean, with this presentation, it's a DARPA program. Well, Alan, did it, Mr. Anthrax, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think there's lots of really important. I mean, you're just talking about at this point, mind machine or mind computer interface, and there's plenty of good reasons for doing that with for soldiers to do that, right? Especially logistics change and planning and all that kind of stuff. Also, I mean, we already do that with heads-up displays and eye tracking to guide missiles. I mean, they can already track you on your cell phone. So, I mean, I don't think it'd be it's not like
No.
they're trying
Actually,
to get into your brain too much.
where I'm trying to guide you is actually super soldier territory. Science fiction is, if you were able to, like an Iron Man, just think of things and missiles start shooting, or if you're able to fly around by thinking about it, or if you're able to, continue to fight even when you don't want to fight. Remember, they're able to send signals in theoretically. So
Right.
let's say you've got an overwhelming fear of the conflict that's going on. If you can override that, I mean, I don't mind this, but there are some applications of this that could be really ugly.
Well, yeah, I get what you're saying. And like, I think who said, Alora said, like mind to drone, link, right? Yeah, that's just mind to machine. And we do that now. Somebody in the desert in out south of Las Vegas is flying a drone over, Afghanistan or
Yep.
Iraq or Yemen. And, when we're doing that now, I mean, but I guess, I was actually wrote a couple of essays about super soldiers and, the kind of the main three categories that is kind of I think of it as sort of archaic until we reach the CRISPR age or whatever, the gene editing age. And that's how do we grow them or make them if they're going to be robots? How do we train them? And, and that, do we take all the orphans and then, have them essentially start their military schooling as infants, whatever. And then how do we equip them? And this, certainly falling under the equip thing, but maybe at some point it's like the Borg, we're growing them with the implant built right in, and that transitions through the years, and we train them to how to use it in school. That's just like I think the grenade is an interesting example. The Germans designed their early grenades like sticks because every kid was used to throwing sticks.
Ah,
And we designed ours like a baseball because every kid knew how to throw a baseball, so they were around. And now we design them like drones because every kid knows how to play a video game. So it's a little different. And I think at some point it'll be like, oh, well, every kid knows how to do a Neuralink. And so that's what
hey,
wow.
Art, let's go on to Art. I think he's the only one who hasn't weighed in. Art, do you like any of these three?
Well, to me, a non-destructive scanning would be the best. Kind of like, say, the first one, a slice and scan, but without the slicing. If you had the advanced technology to just scan the brain and have every single minute detail read and saved. But then the second BCI, that's more to increase bandwidth. I wouldn't see that as an option for brain uploading. It's more to communicate with computers on the outside with your brain. This method here, the little nanobots, I guess that would work for, like a BCI too, but I don't see that being for mind uploading. I don't think it would be precise enough. It's floating around in your veins. Is it going to stick in certain parts of the brain, near certain areas of the brain, and near the neurons? Maybe if you can keep it circulating enough in the brain, it's a more advanced BCI, I think, without the surgery,
Okay.
but not for mind uploading.
Yeah, so the Battelle system did go through the several rounds. I suspect that pretty soon they just won't tell us any more about the progress that they're making. So let's go on. So next is identity, and this is where things are going to get more philosophical than just the mechanics of how you upload your brain. So there's always a debate on whether or not the mind upload, let's just switch gears to assume that someone has had their mind uploaded. Then there'll be a bunch of questions. I'll read through this and then we'll discuss it. Is that mind upload, is it real at all? Is the upload you or just a copy? What constitutes the authentic you? So is it memories? that are, the ones that are consciously accessible. The authentic you, does it have something to do with the physical body? And here I am kind of mocking the cryogenics folks, because I'm never going to get cryogenics done. I think it's idiotic. Sorry, folks. I think that the idea that your body after centuries is going to be brought back and reanimated is just Frankenstein bullshit. Okay. Or the authentic you, is that your emotions and your feelings as opposed to like your memories? Because what happens is some people think about what's going on in your brain as being you, and someone will say, well, you get feedback from your body, hunger, pains, pain, temperatures, whatever. That's influences how you think. Habits and thought patterns, your brain gets into these kind of, especially as you get as old as I am, right? You start thinking the same way all the time, and you don't think of new ways. And then lastly, experiences, including some of the ones that are now your unconscious memories or lost memories. So for me, I'll just say, I'll kick it off this way, and I'll say that for me, it is memories only, okay? All the rest of this stuff makes no difference. If I can upload my memories authentically, that's me. Okay, so let's do the same sequence again. Alora, I bet you're chomping at the bit to tell me about this.
Well, John more or less agrees with you.
Okay.
I think that when we say me, we mean our memories and the things we've lived through. Because if I hit my head hard enough and I forget everything and I just feel like a new person, then I lose my sense of me. I have a different sense of me. So I'd be like, I'm not the Alora that you guys knew. I'd be someone different.
I
So
agree.
yeah.
The only thing I'd add to that, it's not just your memories, but your forward momentum, like your ambitions and the things, your goals you intend to, accomplish. So it's not just where you were, but where you're going. There's no particular point where you're you right now, right? So
Right.
it is what you've done and what you want to do more than it
Agreed.
is the frame you're in.
Yeah, your intention, because that's what drives you forward.
And I'll just say that I think that that's part of your memories. You're going to remember, say we cut
Oh,
you
yeah.
off and
That's
upload you. That part of your memories are going to be, yesterday I was thinking about, I'm going to go fly to the moon. Okay. Whatever your memory, whatever your intentions were. So all I'm trying to do is differentiate what needs to be uploaded for you to claim that that is you. And if it's, say, memories and intentions, that's part of your list. Other people are going to say things like your physical body has to be part of it, or it's not you anymore. So anything else from you two?
Well, I suppose you'd have to bring some kind of emotion along with it, as much as it pains me to say that, because you'd have to know like why you wanted to do it as well. Not just remember that, oh, I needed to do this thing, but why were you ambitious about it to start with? You'd have to have some kind of, gray term there to make you motivated.
One of the reasons why I put that as a bullet, emotions, is that folks talk about that as not being literally a 0 or a 1, that it's an analog, not a digital, right? And your body has ways of altering the levels that might be harder to do in digital upload. And I'm going to just say that clearly what David Kelly has already shown is that you can, in fact, have an equivalent to analog, and therefore you could model your emotions. I'm going to say, though, that there's plenty of meds that we have that help you moderate your emotions, right? And that doesn't change who I am. Now, I understand what you're saying. You may elect, I want to have the same set of emotions that I had when I had the bio bag version of me, right? So, how about you, Alora? Anything else?
Like I put a lot of stock into my identity with my body. So I would say that I would like to carry a memory of my body with me and my when I feel like I'm at my peak. But honestly, because bodies are always changing too, this idea of me is always changing, yeah, I don't know. Like,
Well, actually, I'm very glad that you brought up that your body is changing because one of the podcasts I was just listening to, all the cells in your body get replenished every, I don't know how
Mhm.
many years, whatever, they do get flushed out. But since you do frequently point out you'd like to be a cyborg, we would anticipate that some of these cyborgs could be built such that it's almost indistinguishable from your current biological body, or maybe what you were like at a particular age. Or, the other version that we talk about sometimes is, I'm not that tall. I'm 5'8". What if I was 7'2"? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, your body might be what you want, but you might want a completely different body. And I think that that's possible, right?
yeah, I
You
think I'm
grow it up
attached
into
to it.
whatever. Go ahead.
I'm attached to it because I have it. But if I could, alter my avatar, I would. It's not like I would, because eventually this one's gonna get old and stop working. Like, I'm 35, almost 35, and I'm like bodybuilding right now. But you know what I have to look forward to if I stop or get injured, or like I got osteoporosis in my future. So I really don't, I'm not looking forward to aging.
Yeah. Yep.
I would like to make it better. So and I think that the ideals that I have about beauty and about strength and all that would come with me into my mind upload, and that would just shape how I affect my avatar, or affect how I am existing in a simulation. Say if I'm just living in a simulation after the mind upload,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would.
We will get to that. We will get to physical versus virtual. Let's see what Ada thinks. Ada, what makes? Go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure. Honestly, with this, I feel like, you know how turnips do when you take them out of water and they turn inside out? My identity is all inside. I'm not really even, I'm thankful for my good old body, but it's, at one point I was making a list of songs to be played at my funeral because I wanted it to be a happy time and a good old party. And my daughter started crying. Quite the opposite of what I was hoping for. So we're not even talking about it anymore. But here's what's interesting. Recently, I've had the opportunity to help my friend um, move her aunt out of the apartment in old people's home. Aunt Catherine, I met her at many holiday parties. She's this distinguished elderly lady. Always had great photographs from the past. Come to find out, Aunt Catherine left home at 18, became a bartender, and then a stripper in the quarter. Now we're talking about the 86-year-old lady. She moved across the lake with her girlfriend. Then she got a job with Shell Corporation, and Catherine was rocking it out. Going through this lady's things through her apartment was just like going through somebody's mind, life, and identity. From her clothes to endless bottles of painkillers this lady was dealing. She had a list, and I so wanted to call this person nicknamed Legs. Legs was on top of every list for the painkiller. I'm like, who is Legs? She had such artistic sense. She had sketchbooks of costumes, I guess, when she was dancing and whatnot. It was just amazing. I gained a whole new respect. And textbook example, and Catherine still had some sex toys in her drawer. That's okay. I guess we were not supposed to find that either. But it's really interesting. I've been really fortunate to live great life. I've had so many memories I wouldn't wish on the worst enemy, and I prefer to remember just the happy times. So I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure that I want to share like the bad times, maybe as a learning tool of some kind. Like tonight, I was telling my children how my parents used to put vinegar socks on me to take the fever out of my body, and they were just amazed. All those stories, like I'm not sure. I'm on the fence about this. I have to think about this some
Yeah,
more.
okay, wait a second. I may have missed, I think I caught it. And I haven't thought about this before. Are you saying you might want to actively delete some of the memories that you didn't like?
I would like to spare my children some stuff. They
Gotcha.
don't need to go through it.
Gotcha.
Like I've been through Civil War. I've seen brains splattered on the wall. I don't think anybody needs to see that.
Right.
Mm.
Right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, actually, what I'm
I
putting at
don't
the
want them
bottom
to
there
find
is
sex toys anywhere near
at,
me.
at the bottom, I'm putting, I know that I have unconscious memories. I can't
Yeah.
access them actively, but they're there.
Right.
And then there's stuff I've lost. I'm thinking about stuff I'd like to recover. You're saying that there's
Right.
stuff you may want to just kind of delete. That's interesting. It's good.
There are things, if I had a chance to look through my memories, I'm sure there's a lot of things that I like put away in a safe place and locked away from my own self. I'm sure there's things I don't want my children to worry about. It's just, I guess, my protective self trying to, at the same time, I want them to learn from my experience. So it's a fine line for me.
Yeah. Let's check out, let's see who would be next. Ellen? Ellen, what do you think about, what do you need to upload for it to be you?
Well, I think there's some interesting things there, and I think that kind of like Alora said, she's attached to her body because she has it, but also she has it because she's attached to it, right? I think that we're not so separate from our body.
Yeah.
Our experiences, we get all of our experiences through our physical apparatus, right? Our mind is not really experiencing anything. It's simulating and integrating all of the different things that our body comes into contact with. Just like, say, for example, when you hit a tennis ball, you're going to hit the ball with the racket, the sight of doing that is actually going to reach your body first, the sound next, and at a different time will be when you feel it in your hand, and that nerve goes through your hand to your brain. So your brain is always sort of simulating those different responses to the physical world and making an evaluation. So when you swing the racket and hit the ball, it sounds like and looks like everything and feels like everything's happening at once, which to some regard it is, but you're really not receiving those signals all at once like that.
So
But your
wait,
body sorts
let
it out.
me follow up on that. Is one aspect is you could imagine a mechatronic body that does send those same types of sensations through a wiring, not your nerves.
Right?
But the question would be, do you need to have the same physical body responses that you had with your bio body? Do you need it in the mechatronic, or just some sort of signal?
Here, what I'm ultimately suggesting is that the signals you receive shape you in some way.
Sure.
So as soon as you transfer from, if you're talking about mind uploading as opposed to just connecting to a more vast, internet mind, then you will no longer have the physical sensations that you grew up with.
Yeah.
You will have this different set of physical
Yes.
sensations. So,
Sure.
so when we think about like an entity, let's say whatever, a sapien that is purely created on the computer, right? They're only going to have our best ability to mimic the human body when it comes to perceiving things. And so they might be able to perceive a vast more, like a broader visual spectrum, a broader auditory spectrum, a different tactile spectrum, but it won't be human. I mean, it won't be the human spectrum or isolated by their idiosyncratic variables. So that, yeah, the body that's unique to you, I think, shapes you. So as soon as you move from one body to another, whether that's, a silicone chip or whatever, you're going to experience life differently
Sure, of
to the
course.
extent that there's any continuity there at all. And,
Ada has raised her hand. What's up, Ada?
That my concern is also the brain is wonderful, but I also believe my biggest gift is in my heart, and I see here emotions and feelings feedback from organs to brain. But I would really like to upload my love for everybody, especially my children, and save it somewhere. If we could do that, I'll be okay.
Okay, all right. Let's
Yeah.
go into
let me conclude real
Sure.
quick, because I
Sure.
really liked Ada's comment earlier about, what are we saving, uploading our brain to do? Is it to share our memories with future generations, et cetera? And would that type of brain transferring be like one person to another? And then lastly, I guess I'm just gonna say that, just like you say, that idea of the heart, all of those feelings, those like gut feelings, we call them quite often, they literally come from other creatures living inside of us, right? So it's very hard to replicate. I mean, in some degree, right? It's an interactive process, but yeah, it's hard to replicate that for a machine. I guess my point is, there's the body creates our brain, and consciousness and existence is not located simply in our brain, right? There's all sorts of the autonomic nervous system, the rest of your extended nervous system, everything that's supporting the worm that extends from your lips to your anus, right? I mean, that's the all of that is just a support system for that too. So
let's see what Ben thinks. Ben, what do you think of what makes your identity, Ben?
I want my consciousness, my sentience to continue. I would be maybe a little bit dismayed if I lost my sapience or I lost my body, but maintaining my consciousness is the thing that is important. The movie that kind of made me think this, and I know I shared this YouTube thing, but maybe any of you have seen The Prestige with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. And in that movie, Hugh Jackman, he replicates himself through a Tesla technology or something. And if I was going to get my mind uploaded, I think of myself, and this is now just for people who have seen the movie, I think of me, the body, as Hugh Jackman in the tank underneath the stage drowning, and me, the uploaded mind, being Hugh Jackman that continues to live, that's up in the balcony. Like, that's just my, like, I'm quite pessimistic about mind uploading unless it was done the Ship of Theseus kind of way.
Yeah, there are most people are in that same vein as what you just described, and that's why number 2 there is the upload you or just a copy. And so there's a lot of people that go, I don't care how you upload your mind, it's not going to be you. And so of course, I think differently about that. Ben, anything else? I understood what you meant. You want the stream of consciousness, you want your sapience and your sentience. Clearly, you want that continuity. Continuity is important to you, as it is with many. Anything else, Ben?
No, I said it, I guess.
Okay, Art.
what was the name
I
of that
want to hear
movie?
what you got to say.
The Prestige.
About 2 magicians? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, from my experience having surgery and being unconscious, I know it's basically you're asleep and you wake up and I'm in my body. But one time when I was doing a pulmonary function test and they had me breathing out this tube as much as I could, I passed out for like 30 seconds. And I swear when I came to, I was on a galactic cruiser when I was out. And I'm like, why would my mind make this up in the 30 seconds I was unconscious from doing this test? And that's literally what I remembered waking up. I was like passed out like this, and I'm like coming up, and I remembered being on the galactic cruiser. So that made me sort of think, this is all a simulation.
Hey, Art, I'm going to say that you have clearly one of the most unusual brains between your shaky appearing in the corner of your bedroom and passing out and appearing on a galactic space cruiser. I mean, you have quite the imagination. I understand why you're an artist.
Yeah. Well, some of it is experience. I mean, I've had the UFO experiences too. And, that's a whole, can of worms going down the tunnel. So I've had those experiences back in the 90s. So I've had kind of paranormal experiences for a while, but shaky, that was definitely unique because it kind of answered some questions. But yeah, these experiences make me think this is almost a simulation. So if you copy your subconscious or your what do you call it, your consciousness to something else, I don't know, it might just be a copy. It's like starting a new player in the game.
Okay. All right. So there isn't anything on this list that would necessarily make it certain for you that that is really you, Ramon Garcia, uploaded. You're not sure that that could ever really happen. There's a lot of people. It's not a mockery. I'm checking. That's what you're thinking is it.
Well, if it was the exact same body, I mean, if it's a simulation, they could just recreate another copy of the body and stick me back in. And
So let me pull on that. You want the body. For it to be you, it's got to be your body, and what else?
Well, I would say that would be the same experience. But let's say if you play the game again and they stick you in a dog's body, well, you're going to be constrained by, the body of that creature, and then you're not going to have the thoughts you would as you did in a human body.
All right.
So,
okay,
it's like playing Goat Simulator. You're a goat.
this is very fun. Hearing these different versions. I don't have everybody on my screen. So did I get through everybody? Can we go on? Did I miss anybody? Okay, I'll go on. Because there's just a few more slides left. So self, okay, I expect to be alone at the end of this slide. So same set of questions. Is the mind upload real? Is the upload you or a copy? What constitutes the authentic you? And then this is where I'm going to diverge a little bit. Is there only one central homunculus sitting inside your brain that is yourself? Okay, and those creatures there are from a museum where they're talking about Cortex Man and the homunculus. This is kind of a way that some people kind of make fun of the concept of self, that there's something inside you that is the you doing the thinking, okay? And the bottom part of this is just me. For me, there is no self. I have no self. There is no me, okay? Basically, the mind is a series of different programs running. Some of them have origins in prehistory, of course, with reptilian, or before that about hunger and sleep and, fear, danger. And some are more recent about, being careful, make sure that my hair is kind of combed and that I'm not, that I wash my face, just looking good, wearing the right kind of clothes, or cooperating with people. I'm not very much on socializing at all. Okay. Some of these things are new programs in how you get along with people. These all run in conflict. There's not one me saying, for example, I walk into the kitchen and I see this delicious looking brownie with thick frosting on it. There's two things that go through my head right away. One is, I better eat that right now or I'm going to die, because that might be my last food in my lifetime. The other part of me says, you're too fat, you can't eat that, right? There isn't one me determining what to do. There's a conflict in what should I be doing. And so my contention is that there is no self. And the last point is kind of a comment directly to Gennady, who's very insistent that there is a I-ness. And so this is where Ship of Theseus and some of these other concepts of a stream of consciousness, if you really believe in a self, okay, and that you have to do this sort of gradual transition from biological brain to mechatronic brain, you have this invested aspect of this, then a lot of these mind uploads really aren't going to work for you, right? You're going to lose your I-ness. You're going to, whatever's uploaded is just a copy. It's not really you. But I already come from the viewpoint that there is no self. There's nothing there is no I inside here, right? So anyway, that's, now we're going to hear everybody else. No one else is going to, no one else is going to agree with me. That's okay. All right. So let's do Laura and John. What do you guys think about self now?
So the way that I see it is I occupy space-time in this form. So it's a structure, and when electricity moves through the structure, vibrates in a certain way, creates brainwaves, and I have a consciousness experience. I don't know where I go when I go to sleep, but I'm not me when I sleep and dream. So I kind of agree with you that there's this idea of I is fleeting and it's transient. Like, well, okay. Sorry, she's just woke up.
You know my point anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll wait till John gets back so he can
Yeah,
say
we can come back to John. I want to hear you. Go ahead.
Sure. So I think that if I like the Ship of Theseus idea better, because I think that if I could somehow create like a stainless steel version or like some other material that wouldn't be rejected by the body, okay? If I could, that doesn't kill the cells around it. If I could slowly replace my parts with something like that, then I think that there's more chance that the experience I'm having right now would be continuity, would continue. Whereas I think if I were to become an upload, it would be a copy of me. It wouldn't be me. It would be a copy of me, which is okay. Because I think if I'm being honest, I like who I am and I think I'm good for the world. So I don't mind that I would be copied and used for whatever purpose. But honestly, I don't know that I would continue this feeling like I'm alive. I don't know that it might just stop. Once this body is offline, that might be the end. So I don't know, because we haven't found a center in the brain that contains, the person, like Descartes thought it was in the pineal gland or whatever. We don't know that can happen. So if we run tests and you hook me up to the thing that's a replication of me, and I suddenly I'm seeing from it like I'm switching, cameras, then awesome. But I don't know that that'll happen. So that, and even if I do replace parts of me and become something more than me, I'm okay with it not being an authentic me. I'm okay with Alora becoming Spectral Valkyrie. I'm okay with becoming, the next thing, because I think we're supposed to change and evolve and become more. So that's my, that's the thing. And yes, we are a homunculus already, because we're made up of more than human cells. We're like, it's 1-to-1 ratio with the other little biomolecules in our body that aren't human cells. So, like, I kind of agree in that sense that we aren't an I, because we're the intelligence of many different cells, and we don't know what percent those cells feel of their consciousness. We don't know if cells feel any individuality. At what level? Do they feel something when they become tissues, when they become organs? Are we just another step up, a quantum leap up from what a stomach feels as a unit? And then are we part of something bigger? So there's all these questions about self, you know? So,
Yeah.
and when me and John talk about this, we kind of agree that humanity might benefit from a kind of Borg situation, because if we're going to have generational projects where we're working towards something better for humanity, it might be better to be able to know what I want to know what Mike thinks instantaneously, and we should be on board with certain initiatives. And I think that would be better for social cooperation. So, I mean, that's kind of another reason why I don't really want to upload emotion, because you can have very grand, complex feelings that aren't emotional, that per se, you can rationalize wanting to continue the species for your children. It doesn't have to make you emotional. It can just be something you really want to do. So,
By the way,
yeah, I don't know if I'll wait till John gets back for his, but
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
what's your,
I can't tell if I'm sharing or not. Can you see me on the camera?
Yes.
yes,
Right, so I don't know how well this is showing up. But you just talked about the origin of consciousness.
it's great.
I'm not recommending the book, but this guy claims that he has found the actual origin in the brain of the structure that's responsible for consciousness. It's called The Hidden Spring. His
Oh,
name
wow.
is Mark Solms, but again, I'm not recommending it because I didn't like what he was saying at all. Okay, but okay, John, you're back. What do you think, dude?
About the oneness of what we are, I don't think that's a thing either. I think that we're a conglomeration of different ideas and thoughts all at once, and you usually pick the one that wins out the most.
Yep.
Usually, lately, I've been on the Stoic quotes very often, so that's been influencing my mindset, and you know where I go in my own day. So, I
So
don't think.
you just made a really good comment about pretty close to thoughts think themselves. And they, if you ever read On Consciousness, this is Bernard Bars. Okay, he is one who talks about all the thoughts that are going on in the back of your brain, unconsciously, subconsciously. They compete to be on stage, to be the ones that make conscious decisions, right? So thoughts think themselves is one version of how to say it, and the other is, like he says, he has global workspace theory as his concept. He is a really brilliant guy, but similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, no thought is original kind of idea. Everything's been said before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it. That's for sure. So, if you get your upload, is it going to be you or a copy? Do you have an opinion on that?
100% a copy. 100%. I'm not who I was 6 months ago. I'm missing plenty of pieces. So it's yeah, you're not the same person day by day, let alone after an upload.
Would
Like,
it be good enough for you? Say,
oh, it's good enough for me. Yeah, if I could have two of me, I'd be all right with that. Maybe he'd take my middle name and I'd take the first name or something, and he can go off. It's still me, even if I'm not existing in that head.
okay.
So
All right. So that's kind of what I mean by, usually when somebody says a copy there, it's a derogatory, it's not the real you, right? But I think what you're saying is you could be uploaded and that upload is equivalent to your biological one in a lot of senses. Good enough. True?
100%. There is no real me.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now we're 100% in agreement. Okay, let's go on. Let's see who else. Alan, what do you think, dude?
Yeah, I think that you are not as alone as you might have thought. Again, talking about Annika Harris's book, which I really do recommend, Conscious. It's a 2-hour listen on Audible, but it's she goes into the long kind of philosophic and scientific aspects of the brain or whatever. And clearly, I don't know if she mentions Gurdjieff, but Ouspensky's book on Gurdjieff's teachings, he talks about how the mind is a collective eye, again, competing eyes, so that, and I don't think they had the neuroscience back in the 1700s to understand the gut biome and, whatever else is contributing to those various eyes. But still the same kind of thing, not a singular homunculus, as you say. Probably what the word they used, I'm not sure. But yeah, anyway, I agree. I think in the molecular sense, we're all ships of Theseus, right? I mean, nobody's got the same cells they had when they were 7 years old, except maybe that one youngster up in Canada. But the rest of us, we're changing them out all the time.
Yeah.
But we still have a continuity of self in our own brain, right? So, and again, that's just like hitting the tennis ball or whatever. That's our brain putting together the data and saying we're a consistent thing,
So if you got your mind upload and let's say you were the upload, you'd be satisfied that you weren't inferior, you were equivalent to the biological version of Alan. True?
Yeah, I think wholeheartedly. I think that they're different. They're going to be, like I was saying earlier, different set of access to the environment is going to create a difference in cognition and a difference in, to the extent that there is an emotional state as an uploaded being. Yeah. But again, 5 minutes after I get my brain uploaded to the computer, as long as that's not a destructive process, I'll be getting up and walking away, or at least being rolled away under sedation. But I mean, but then I'm going to start. I'll be coming out of sedation. All automatically, I will have a different experience than what my whatever you want to call it, uploaded counterpart has.
Yes, right. Well, Ada, why don't you tell me what's on your mind? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I don't think that there is any self, really. I will agree with that. No I-ness. In this case, for example, when I came over here, I was 29. I was actually almost 29. And I used to be a teacher. I used to be somebody's daughter. I used to speak a different language. I used to be a travel agent, whatever I was. All of a sudden, you're in a new environment, like somebody put you in China, for example. You don't speak the language. You don't know anybody. You're nobody. We go through so many different selves from one moment to the next. I don't know how anybody can subscribe to I-ness and selfness and everything. Plus, ego is not the best thing to deal with. So whatever would be uploaded would be some sort of a version of me. I hope the next moment would be better version of me. I really see myself in this spiral, like Bolero, Ravel's Bolero, just expanding and going. And I hope I'm just constantly improving, a work in progress,
Very good.
It's,
Let's go into Ben. Ben, what do you think?
He's listening.
Okay. And let me go on then. Art.
I'm gonna have to go with copy.
Okay.
Especially if the original me is still alive somehow, and then somehow you create a copy into another substrate,
Okay.
then it's the original me would still consider it a copy, but that copy, I think, I don't know, I still get this feeling of simulation where you're only controlling one player.
Yeah.
So, could you control two players at the same time? But it's hard to say. I'm thinking copy in certain cases. No, I'd say copy in most cases.
Okay, all right. Well, this next one, Ada raised her hand, so let me go ahead, Ada.
I'm sorry, I just thought of this. Like, my friends remember some stuff about me that I don't. My family remembers some stuff about me. Ideally, we could get all of that stuff into single jar and just bottle it up and be like, okay, this is what it is. But honestly, I don't know. Like, I joke sometimes, why am I still here and David Bowie isn't? I mean, we all have our purpose. We are all amazing. I used to really enjoy Shakespeare. We are such stuff that dreams are made of, and our little life is but rounded with sleep. That's who we are. We are dreams. How do we capture our own selves?
Actually, I'm hopeful that they find a way with some of these techniques for me to tap some of the missing memories, or the ones that are just in the subconscious or the unconscious, that I can recover some of the things that aren't coming up when I try to remember what happened that day in second grade and nothing is
Right.
coming up. I'd love to have
Right.
perfect recall, and there may be a way to do that, but let's go on here. Branching, we got I think only 2 slides left, but okay, so branching is very interesting. And one of the guys I mentioned before is Keith Wiley's book, A Taxonomy and Metaphysics of Mind Uploading. Very good book. He talks a little bit about branching. So if you do multiple uploads, which upload is you or the copy? What constitutes the authentic you? These are kind of the similar questions. What makes one the original? Let's say the biological version dies and you've done multiple mind upload, which one's the original? And then this is where Alora and I are going to start branching in opinions. So as every upload has different experiences as time goes on. Say you've got multiple uploads, okay? Now they're going in different places and they have different experiences. So their personalities, their identities begin to change. They're not the same person, okay? And that's very typical. And by the way, Dr. Keith Wiley, I've had arguments with him. He doesn't like my opinion on this very much. He thinks it's ludicrous, frankly. But anyway, if you have multiple uploads, but they are linked such that they can download the experiences that the others experienced during the day, then you would be able to share the experiences. Now, one of the things that I'm counting on is, of course, that these mechatronic brains work at thousands of times faster than our biological brain. And therefore, in essence, you could have a seance each night. My version of life is I have my biological self, and then I upload into 10 mechatronic robots that are scattered across the earth. They're in different locations. This reduces the risk of the end of my life. If I'm going for super longevity, folks, I'm not going for another 20 years. I like telling my beautiful wife that we have centuries and centuries ahead of us to do all the things that she wants to do. Of course, that no one but me thinks of this, right? So if there's 10 of them spread across the earth, and one of them gets hit by a train and the other one gets electrocuted, there's still 8 more surviving versions of me, right? So the way that they don't branch is they have a seance and they download each other's experiences during the day, and therefore they're shared, okay? So that's branching. Let's go through the same sequence. Alora and John, did I sell you on branching hive mind?
I think you need a way to cool your brains if they're gonna be all running at that, like what you just said. I mean, I don't even remember everything that happened to me during the day, and I'm glad because that would just take up a lot of energy and a lot of space, and I feel like there's a reason we evolved to not do that. So, I mean, like, are your copies of each other giving a summary at the seance? Because, yeah, I just feel like that's so much
No,
information.
let me go through it again. Imagine super speed up. Instead of watching a movie over 2 hours, it's in 20 seconds. But your brain is now a computer brain, and it doesn't have to take 2 hours to figure out what's happening. It happens so quickly, right? So you're
Right.
able to process the experiences of another being in seconds, not in 24 hours. Okay.
Yeah, I really have a hard time with this concept because if I was hanging out with Mike number 4 during the day, and now all of the mics have that, they know that that happened, they know exactly how that felt, I would still only be attached to the experience with Mike number 4. Maybe. It'd be something like it'd be a whole new way of experiencing our humanity. So that's why it's like, hi.
Would be.
Oh, it's garbage. Okay, we'll go put it in the garbage can. John can weigh in.
Yeah, I think we got some pretty major hurdles to go through before we get to anything close to that, but it would be pretty great, you know, we are Borg or Legion or whatever. It would be pretty exciting, especially if you could space out over large distances so the Alora's problem didn't come up. Like if I was in a completely different continent, it wouldn't really matter, right? Even if we did encounter my other me, wouldn't be the end of it. So, and it really depends on what you're trying to get done with this too. Are we all just hanging around? Like why you want 5? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
What are they gonna do?
yeah, and I will explain that at some point. Yeah. So, would you go ahead and have multiple uploads or just one?
I want to be the central node that they all report to.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. All right. Alan, what do you think? What do you think of branching?
Yeah, I've listed some different sci-fi books that have dealt with the concept, like The Peripheral by William Gibson, where there's literally a biological peripheral somewhere that you connect to. Your body remains in stasis, and then your consciousness shifts to that other peripheral. You can walk around Europe and do whatever you want to do, and then you return to your body via the internet or whatever, which is similar to how Altered Carbon does their space travel. They send the digits across space, and then at the speed of light, basically, and then they're received on the other end, and it goes into what's called a stack, and then that's inserted into a clone body or whatever, and then there you are. And Alistair Reynolds' book Revelation Space deals a lot with people making artificially intelligent backups of their brain, and they have a whole legal structure because you don't want your backup brain, which for all intents and purposes is you, to like come to consciousness and start making decisions on your behalf while you're away across the galaxy, maybe light years away, and need 2 or 3 years to get back. And so this idea of only having one primary is really essential in that. They talk about that in that book. So yeah, I think that as soon as you create like clones of yourself somewhere else that are also have your mind, I think you're in a situation where those folks are going to have different. They're no longer you. They're going to have different experiences, and they're going to. And I don't know how you would. I mean, I've read about it in sci-fi, but it doesn't mean I don't know how we're going to have the like John said, to be the central upload, right, where all that data comes back to be the primary one. in altered carbon, like the rich people, they can afford to have a clone, and they have 2 or 3 around the world so that one clone isn't destroyed. And then on a regular basis, typically every 24 hours when they go to bed, they upload their mind. They whatever takes an hour or so, they're just updating really, so that if they are killed, and like the guy in the first book is, then their most recent memories are sent to or uploaded into the clone, and they're rich, so they send a plane to pick themselves up and fly home, right? And they've only missed 24 hours of whatever happened, So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting ways those things can be done. I don't know how. I mean, I really think going back to where do good ideas come from, that book where the author talks about the adjacent possible. It's really hard to think beyond what we are already next to, right? So we're very much next to the brain interface with the internet, right?
Yeah.
And we can probably get that 24/7, right? You could have your cell phone just attached to your brain and be texting and calling and connecting and looking at web pages all the time. I mean, I think that's kind of the adjacency where we're at, and not, it's a little bit farther to go. Yeah, we're asking a question that's kind of a step beyond what we're adjacent to. So I have no idea. I mean, I think having a body for things to land in is a really great idea. If you just say, I'm going to upload my consciousness to just a computer frame, right, where I'm going to live my existence inside that computer frame in a simulation, that's something completely different, right? I don't know. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, so for me, there's no attraction to living virtually in a simulation. The only reason I want to have more versions of me is to experience life. One of the things that happens with the mechatronic version of me is not only do I process everything much faster, but you're right, I don't need to sleep anymore. I can go 24 hours a day, nonstop, all the time, processing and thinking and doing. The biological version of me needs a lot of sleep, right? So your version of having your telecommunications device already mounted in your head, and therefore you can access the internet or talk to people or do calculations or do investment, there's no stop to it. And so there's a powerful incentive for you. As versus the question on multiple versions of you and who has primacy, of course, from me that I want to work a co-op. So obviously all 11 of us are co-owners and we work together. And since we share experiences, we're all thinking the same things because we're experiencing all the same things. But instead of just having one Granite Falls, Washington, Mike DeVerde, I'm also at the bottom of the Mariana Trench walking around without a suit. I'm also on the surface of the moon walking around without a suit. I'm also in Paris, and I'm also in Beijing, in Tokyo. Okay, I mean, then each day you get all of these experiences that each of me has had. And by the way, this version I've been talking about for years. So the interstellar travel we're going to talk about on the next slide, we'll go very quickly, but you mentioned it. I mentioned this years ago, and I really thought this was great, is once you get loaded up as software and you get sent on that laser beam to Alpha Centauri, of course you're not conscious during transit. So you begin the transit when you wake up the next morning, if you will. When you wake up, it's 4 years later and you're there at the space station loaded up in a mechatronic suit, right? So, it's instantaneous interstellar travel. And yes, actual time has gone on. You leave in 2030 and you land in 2034, but your experience is a 0-time, 0-second transfer. Nothing better than that. And if I've got multiples, then in theory, I can send a new one back every day. I don't have to wait 4 years to hear what it's like. Each day I get a new version of me sent behind the other one, right? As they're streaming each version of them. Okay. So, and then they upload once they get here, right? So it'd be like a constant feedback on the adventures going over the planets of Alpha Centauri. Okay. So, Art, what are you thinking, man?
Well, if there's multiple instances of yourself, I think there would still be copies, copies that start off with your knowledge and experience, but eventually might deviate to their own life. But if they're all synchronizing back to the original and each other, I guess they could all play the hive mind game if they all choose to. You know, they might say, "Fuck you." I don't want to be your.
Actually, that is one reason why I want the sync up is you can imagine some of them starting either get jealous of the others or suspicious or paranoid and then want to destroy the other one so that they have all the money, right?
But I was saying, even syncing up, they could start to develop their own priorities, their own, their own ideas, and just say, "I don't want to play this anymore. See ya. I'm going to go live my own life." So I think it might be difficult keeping your little hive together. So,
and especially over centuries, right? Because I'm not
Yeah.
talking about a few months. I'm talking about centuries. Okay. Anything else, Art? Please. It's going to be hard. Okay.
It might be easier just to have some remote AI that reports to you rather than it being a copy of yourself.
Yeah.
I think that copy would have too much consciousness and free will and just go in its own direction.
Yeah.
Maybe
See,
having
I don't want a chatbot telling me, R2D2 telling me what is going on that planet. I want to be there. See, so very good points. Very interesting.
but free will. Are you creating your own slave? It's so.
We're brothers.
Yeah.
We're not slaves. We're brothers, man. We're all
Until he
brothers.
says, "No, I'm not. I'm not interested in being your brother." So,
Could be. Well, and see, one of them is going to think he's thought of this already, and he's got a way to disconnect me. There's all kinds of ways that they could go paranoid on you. Sounds like a science fiction flick. Ben, you got any comments on branching?
Yeah. You could just stop getting updates, Mike. Then you'd be like, "What happened to my clone?"
True. No, true. Is Ben still with us? I can't see everybody.
I got two thoughts.
Yeah.
For when we were talking about the ship of Theseus and Mike, it sounded like you were thinking like we'd have to do like each neuron with its own pair really systematically and stuff. And my impression is that the brain is a little more resilient and we could do a little more batch swapping rather than each individually all at the same time. So I'm a little more optimistic about the ship of Theseus thing, I guess. And then also I think there's this thought of once we do figure out how to cure aging, then we need to protect people from like the accidents and that kind of thing. And so I do like the thought of having like the hub, which would be me, my consciousness, and then we have our minions that go out and do the work that we want to do, but then we kind of maintain control of what's going on with the minions. However, the minions are the ones that are at risk, whereas the hub is really not at risk anymore. So that kind of takes out the concern of accident happening to the hub. So those are my couple thoughts of the last two
So
slides.
the first one on Ship of Theseus switching out the neurons, there was a very good, and I can't remember if it was a podcast or an article I read. One of these folks from Carbon Copies was talking about total number of neurons. And of course, as you said, you can't do them really one at a time. So we picked different rates of replacement and then tried to calculate how many years it would take to go through the brain and switch them all out to be, mechanical versions of neurons. So it's very interesting problem when you've got trillions or whatever of neurons, how long it takes to replace them all, depending on what your rate of replacement is. That's number one. Number two, on the second point you were making, how many of you guys have seen Moon?
Seen what?
Moon, I'm almost certain that was the name of the movie. It was a single actor. I think he was the only person in it. I'll have to look it up. It's been a while since I thought about this one. But anyway, there's a person on the moon whose job it is to do some mining. Okay, and so he goes out and he mines every day, and then after a while he starts kind of breaking down and he can't kind of figure out why. And he starts investigating and he finds that he is one of thousands of clones that are on the moon to do the work. The original is back on Earth, so he somehow finds a way to fly back to Earth and lands there. And the original, the hub you guys are referring to, is astonished that one of these clones has made it from the moon back home to confront him about, why did you do this to me? Because they don't live forever. They have intentional, built-in, designed-in obsolescence. So this person gets to live on the moon for a few years doing work, and then he just kind of deteriorates. So this is one of the examples. I think this is
I'm not sure if I've seen that one, Mike. There's two that reminds me of. One is where two people in a spaceship, they have like they telelink, so to speak, to their clone in the spaceship, and then they come back for, like, breaks or whatever. They come back home, and one of them loses the ability to link, so his buddy lets him come back in his body, and then he they have there's like the interloper contest for the guy's wife, all that kind of stuff. It's
I see.
pretty dramatic. And then there's another one where there's some folks that are a pair of guys I think they're on the moon. But anyway, the guy thinks that they think they're going to get rescued and all this. And he finally figures out that, no, we're not. We just get at resupply time or whatever, they're clones, and they just get rebooted. And so that they have their original memories, and they've actually done the same cycle several times, right? So there's a couple of interesting versions of that. Yeah.
So in the last slide, of course, I went over interstellar travel. So we'll go back through the cycle one more time, but also virtual or embodied. Now, I'm very much in favor of only embodied. I don't see any point in being virtual, living in the net, which was a ghost in the shell concept at one point, I remember, or both. And then, of course, interstellar travel. Alora or John, virtual or embodied or both, and any attraction to interstellar travel?
We're having a moment. Our daughter just said she wants to go to the sea. So before interstellar travel, we have to go to the sea. But I mean, if it's possible, I think this is really cool. I really want my mecha suit. I really want my mecha suit, though.
Okay, all right. John?
Hey, I'll go with her. She wants to go. You asked about mine uploading too and being in virtual environment.
Yep.
Where were you going with that? That'd be to pass the time to get to where you're going, or?
Well, if you think about Zuckerberg's idiotic meta, the idea was that you could have a life in a virtual environment. And there's some people who have talked about maybe that's where they permanently go, that they get uploaded into a computer simulation and they just live in the simulation. I am not thinking about that at all. I could care less. But there's some people who think that would be really neato. It's almost like a perpetual video game.
Oh, there's a really funny show on Amazon Prime called Upload. It's about this. It's really funny.
I think we need to pull off something like a Mascriosha brain to even have anything close to that. Why would you need to run all of these people in this simulation? I don't think the energy that you'd need and the computer composition would be beyond anything we could even comprehend. So
We really need.
would it be cool? Yeah, sure, that'd be excellent if I could go into virtual and spend an eternity there in a moment. But I think that's a long ways out.
Okay. Do you have any interest in interstellar travel or walking on the moon or flying out to Saturn or any of these sorts of things?
Well, yeah, of course. That would be a good place to be able to do it virtually so that you wouldn't have to put yourself on the line.
Okay, all right, very good.
Maybe pilot a drone or something. If it was like a machine, like you could get your tactile experience back, that'd be great too. Like you were saying, send a clone. Maybe it doesn't have to be a physical body. Maybe you can just have something relay the information back.
Gotcha. Very good. Very
It,
good.
it would open up a whole market too, because my experience, you could sell those things, right? Be the first one there kind of idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And you would probably have to pay for it some which way, right? So very good. Let's see. I think we already heard from. Well, let's check. Alan, virtual or embodied? Because we've talked about interstellar travel.
I mean, yeah, if we're talking about interstellar travel, I'm not sure I would like interstellar travel embodied because at our current technology, it is a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I think waking up when I get there in some way is, I mean, I want a body when I get there. So whatever that entails,
But just say on planet Earth, do you want to be virtual or embodied with your mind upload?
like that first section there. Oh yeah, I would much rather be embodied.
Yeah.
Maybe some variety of both, but
Yeah.
embodied if I was the hub. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ada, what do you think? Do you want to be virtual? You want to be embodied?
I always joke I want to come back as somebody's pet, like somebody good. A dog, a cat, somebody's pet, embodied for sure. Yeah, but on the other hand, I'm not sure I want like copies of me roaming around. I'm not sure this world can handle more than one of me. I'm not sure I have those discussions with myself as it is. I have to go choke myself there on certain days. I don't know. And the other thing is hive mind. People, I'm an empath. I take on so much of other people's stuff already. If you plug me into this hive mind, I'm just gonna fry. I'm not sure how I could handle that. I'm like extroverted introvert, introverted extrovert. So I'm just
On the hive mind, I would not want to be connected to any other persons. I'm not a social person.
yeah.
So the hive mind for me was only to connect to my other uploads only. But
Okay.
the other people talk about, and I think Laura mentioned this earlier, is she thinks that some version of the Borg where we work together as a unit. There's a lot of people who like that idea of, a consensus global community working together, and that's the last.
I love that. I just need my little time to myself to process all of that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But like I can't I have to think about those clones roaming around the world.
Well, okay, the last part though, do you want to go to other planets and stars, or you're happy there in New Orleans?
I'd like to go around this place a whole lot, and I'm very nosy. I want to see what happens. That's, I think, what keeps me healthy and alive, because I'm nosy and curious to see what the next best thing is.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm all about travel. I'm all about discovering stuff
Cool.
and curiosity in general, whatever, interstellar or disstellar travel. Yes.
All right, let's check in with Ben. Ben, do you care if you're virtual or embodied?
I think I prefer embodied, but I would be okay with virtual if everybody else was in virtual as well. I wouldn't want to have a simulation experience where I was the only sentient entity and everything else was fake. That would not be a life I'd want to keep living. And I'd be interested in interstellar travel, and I'd be fine. Like if I had all the time in the world, I'd be fine to go as a body and just hang out on a ship for a number of years while I'm getting there.
Okay, very good. Very interesting. Okay, so you're the sole person patient enough to do the voyage. Very good. Okay. Art, where are you on? Oh, Ada, you had something else? Go ahead.
I thought of a great book by Anthony Doerr, Cloud Cuckoo Land, I believe it's called, where they all in this spaceship and they believe they are in a spaceship traveling to a galaxy far, far away. And it all turned out to be like a corporate experiment. It's a super interesting book for this conversation. And they created this whole supercomputer with all the information and the library and everything. The whole reality is in there. Anyway, I already gave you too many spoilers, but if you want a nice, easy read, I definitely recommend this book. You'd all enjoy it.
Very good. And I think Art hasn't weighed in yet. Art?
Yeah, I think it's too late. This Zoom call is a rudimentary virtual hive mind. So it's too late not to participate. But if I was trying to send, I guess, a copy of a consciousness to a different galaxy or star system, I'd probably have to take my art to sell. So I might need an embodied form to physically handle, my art. But, I guess I could sit in the salesman ahead as a virtual, and get that negotiation and trade among all the species in the galaxy. So.
All right, cool. Yeah, this did take a long time. We are not meeting next week. I know that that's going to break your hearts, but we'll skip a week. I'll remind you all that David Wood and I will be on Virtual Enlightenment Salon January 28th. Alan, I'm assuming that the book is going along smoothly.
Yes. The only little hiccup was that I had Mara's poems were all submitted as JPEGs, but she sent me just last night, the poems. So I don't have to like retype them all to get them formatted like poems, centered and all that. And I'm gonna have to generate some AI art, I think, for my own. You and Art Ramon have tons of artwork in there, and then Zach's got a couple of charts, and Kimberly's piece has a few charts, and then I had you all together, and then I had the rest of us, and it's like there's all these pictures up front, and then it's just a bunch of text after that. So anyway, I'm gonna bring in some more art, and I want to just ask y'all quick: do you mind if I resize your art so that your text wraps around it?
I do not mind at all, and I think you should just go ahead and do whatever you need to do to finish off the book. I think, by the way, everybody, we will be starting up probably in February, next edition of the book. I'm going to be writing a new chapter, and I think we've got about 4 new people who want to write chapters. Ben is one of them. So we'll be working on the new book almost right away. I asked Alan if he was up for it or if he needed a long vacation, and no, he's ready to go. Okay.
Well, I do have a big project that might take about 8 weeks, but that still allows some time to do our book promotion and get it all packaged up and get it out there. Hopefully by the time you and David are on the the show, or maybe it'll come out the week after, so we can talk it up first and then bring it out.
And both Art and I have done our 10-minute summaries of our chapter. David Wood says he will do his 10-minute summary. We'll just see if anybody else is up for it. Okay. All right.
And I used Filmora. I made a 2-minute summary, so I'm gonna expand that. I'll probably read mine too, because computer doesn't do it justice.
I did read mine out. Alora has a copy. It's an audio. It's not very, it's just my voice. Who the hell wants to listen to that for an hour? But I've done it. Thanks, Dave. Okay, right. So things are going very well. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Happy New Year
Thank
to you all.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
Happy
And
New
thanks for
Year.
your time.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah.
Better.
Love you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, all. Great conversation. Thanks.